This video is going out to one of the followers who is going through pretty tough time right now with some cancer and surgery and kind of really looking at relationship with her child and her wanting to comfort him even though he's a grown child, and really wanting him to be okay with the fact that she's sick and that real life matter of looking at the idea of death. And this really, it spans out quite a bit, so I'm going to cover a lot of topics in this video. What I really have been noticing for myself lately, and again, I always kind of point to my own stories because they're the ones that are happening in the story of Kelly, which are relatable for me. But there always seems to be, of course, some magnification into that mirror to be able to talk to this. We label relationships with others, and as such, we treat them differently. So the label of child, my spouse, my partner, my colleague, whatever, is where I'm finding the suffering is. It's not in what appears to be happening, but it's in that label or that identification with the categorization of that relationship. And this is what I mean by this. So my son just started mid-high school this year. And there's quite an adoption process going on in his little world relative to how kids are acting differently than they did last year. And a lot of these are kids that he's known for 6 years or so since we moved back from New Zealand. So these are not new relationships. Some of them are, because the mid-high school is a combination of two different elementary or middle schools coming together. What he's coming home and reporting are stories of a lot of the kids seeming to be trying to restake their claim in where they fit into the hierarchy of this new mid-high. So there's boys that he's played basketball with or soccer with who are now all of a sudden being really derogatory and really kind of harsh in the way that they're approaching interactions with him. And this is just new because at the middle school, the relationship was understood. So he comes home and he shares with me things that some of these kids are saying. And of course, when the label of I'm his mom and he's my son is there, there's a need to rush in or to fix or to help or to rescue or to call the school or to talk to the kid or to talk to the kid's parents. There's all of that going on. Yet, what I'm noticing is when that label that he's my child is let go of and I'm his mother, there's just the pure ability to be there for him, love him, listen to his story, support. 9 times out of 10, he doesn't even need me to say anything. Sometimes it's just giving him a hug and saying, hey, kiddo, you handled that really well, or you carried yourself really well, or you walked away from that really well. There was a specific example where a kid he's been, in relationship with for many years, was sitting at the lunch table that he's been sitting at with his group of friends, and that table's very crowded. And the kid was really being unkind, and Declan just kind of kindly said, I'm confused why you guys are sitting here now. Weren't you sitting over at that other table? This table's really crowded. And the kid basically said, I'll sit wherever I want, you fag. Well, I loved Declan's reaction. He said, do you talk to your mother with that mouth? He just found humor in it. He was just really shocked. And so he came home and he relayed this story to me. And as a mom, with the label in place, there's a need to rush in, to fix, to call the school, to call that kid's parent who I know his mom. There's all these things happening. But when that label is just let go of, there's the ability to just hug him and say, you handled that really well, kiddo. You know, people can sometimes say unkind things and behave in unkind ways and hurt people. And, you know, he's trying to find his new identification in this new school too. And his way of handling it may not be the way that you would handle it. And that's okay. Without that label of being his mom or Mama Bear or any of the other stories, there's just, again, that level of intimacy to love him right where he is. So to elaborate on my dear sweet friend's story, who's just had surgery yesterday, and her child, who is, you know, the size of a man now, is resting in her arms and crying and scared about the thought of his mother dying, and her wanting to know, how do I comfort him in that? How do I assure him in that? And it really is as simple as realizing he's not yours. He's not your child. You're not his mother. Those are labels, labels of identification. How would you treat anyone else in that situation? Remove that idea of him being your son. If someone's hurting and they're climbing into your arms looking for comfort, you comfort them, you love them, you don't assure them, you don't convince them, you don't promise them, you just love them. You just say, kiddo, I know it's scary, and it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not know. It's okay to look that fear of death in the eyes and say, we're doing it together. You know, there's no assurances here. There's no knowing if cancer's going to go away or not. There's no knowing of what tomorrow brings for any of us. When the idea that he's your son falls away, when the idea that he's my son falls away, the level of intimacy expands. It just does. There's no need to rescue or protect. I know that's a conditioned belief that we as mothers have carried our whole lives. But it's one worth looking at. It's one worth noticing. Just allowing this moment to be what it is. If fear is here, let's sit with that together. If uncertainty is here, let's sit with that together. Let's not know together. Until next time, with much, much love.